Hello, and welcome to another Planning Analytics Workspace demonstration from Lodestar Solutions. We are an IBM partner and we are experts in planning analytics. And today we're excited to show you some fantastic capabilities in IBM Planning Analytics Workspace. Going forward, I'm going to refer to Planning Analytics Workspace as PAW, which is its industry name. We're going to show you basic modeling capabilities in PAW, and here are the steps we're going to take to showcase that. First, we're going to create a type dimension, which is also considered a version dimension. We're going to create an organization dimension by using drag and drop capability. Next, we're going to create a time dimension using features in PAW. Then we're going to create a sales cube from the dimensions that are available to us. Next step we're going to take is load data into the sales cube by dropping a data file into our workspace. We're going to create a business rule for this cube with a few calculations. And then finally, we're going to create a bar chart using the visualization stack that's available in PAW. With that said, let's get started. I'm logged into our Lodestar demo environment, and this is the interface for PAW. What you see on your left here is a server and its components. This is very similar to the way things are in Architect. So it's set up the exact same way. So if you're familiar with Architect, you will find this environment very familiar. So you have applications, cubes, dimensions, processes, chores, and control objects. First thing on our list is that we're going to create a type dimension. So what you do is you right-click on dimensions, create dimension. Type in the name of the dimension. In this case, we're going to call it type. Click create. A tile opens in your work area. So you have two options here. You can either enter members of that dimension manually, or you can customize it as a time dimension. We're going to create a time dimension later on, and I'll show you how that works. But let's create our type dimension first. So enter new member and start typing your elements. So we're going to need actual, budget, forecast. Commit. So now you have three elements within the type dimension. This type dimension has been created. We don't need it right now, so what we'll do is we'll just get rid of this tile. Next, we're going to create an organization dimension. And we're going to use that by creating the drag and drop method. So we're going to right click on dimension, create dimension, and we're going to call it org, create. Next, we're going to use the drag and drop method to create the organization dimension. So we have a CSV file. We're going to take that and drop it right in our work area. So in the file import prompt, you get a couple options. You get the option to create leaf level or parent-child relationship. So in this particular case, we have a hierarchy, organization hierarchy, so we're going to create a parent-child relationship. Our first row is the header row, so we're going to establish that. And then the file is a comma delimited file. You have the option to do different types of files. So this is CSV file, comma delimited. Then we go ahead and map each column, each field within the file. So this is a hierarchy. So the states roll up to the region, so that makes the region the parent. This is the name of the region, so that's going to be an attribute. So new attribute, and it's going to be an alias, and we give that a name, description. Next is this child, so we select that as child, and the last is the alias of the child, and click import. As you can see, the members have been brought in, so the states roll up to the region. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to add a total, since that was not in the file. So I'm going to collapse these. I'm going to say add new member. I'm going to call it total org. Hit commit, and then grab all these and bring that under total org. So all the changes that happen in dimensions are real time. So I don't have to click save. This dimension is ready to go. It's got the total, and then it's got the states under the region. Next, we're going to create a time dimension. So we right click on dimensions one more time, create dimension, and we're going to name this dimension period, and click create. So I mentioned before that there's a button here that allows you to create a time dimension. If we use this capability that's within PAW, it actually gives you fields that are very helpful in creating business rules and basically moving back and forth in time and creating business rules that are either for future periods or previous periods, and it adds those fields for the time dimension that are very helpful. So let's go ahead and click customize as time. So the starting, I'm going to start at 2018 and I want to go all the way to 2019. And I want months as the lowest level granularity. So I'm going to have 2 years, 8 quarters, and 24 months. And I hit click create. So if you can see here, it creates that hierarchy for you, month, quarter, year. And the fields that I was talking about that are very helpful, you can see that by clicking the attributes. So what it does is it creates attributes for you automatically that are very helpful in writing business rules, doing calculations, time-based calculations and such. So the way to see those attributes, you click attributes and you will see them right here. So next period, previous period, last period, first period. So a lot of time-based calculations use these elements. So if you want to go 4 months forward, 4 months back, 3 months forward, 3 months back, you can do that by using these elements. So this is very helpful. Next on our agenda is to create a cube. So we have all the dimensions that we need. Now we can go ahead and start with our cube. So I right click on cubes, create cube. I'm going to name this cube sales. So the order of the dimensions is kind of key here. So I'm going to add all the dimensions that we need in the right order. So type, period, org, accounts, and measure. And click create. So if I take this and look at the cube now, there's no data in here. Next thing we're gonna do is load some data in this cube. Before we go ahead and load data in this cube, we're gonna set up this view to meet our needs so that when we do have data in here, it makes sense. So from the period, from the period dimension, I'm gonna bring it into the columns. I'm going to make a selection here of all leaf levels and replace what's in there. And I'm going to leave the organization to total org and account showing in the rows. So let's go ahead and load some data in this cube now. Now the method we're going to use to load data is the drag and drop again. So I'm going to take a CSV or CMA file, data file, and drag that and bring it right on top of the cube. Now this is a very simplistic example, so we're using drag and drop method, but if there is more complexity to the data, mapping complexities, calculations that need to be done on the way in, any kind of ETL, you can use Turbo Integrator processes to bring the data in, and that's a little bit more advanced, and we can showcase that in later videos. But for now, for this simplistic example, let's load data into this cube using this file. So we have all the fields that match the dimensions that we have in this cube. And then in normal fashion, we have to state a header and the type of file. I'm going to go ahead and map each one of these fields to the dimensions that are in this cube. If you notice, some of them already automatically mapped and some of them I have to do it manually. So as far as region is concerned, I'm going to map that to the org. Accounts goes to accounts, and measure value, and then this is going to be a value number. Once all the fields are mapped, I click import, and 480 rows were read and cells updated 480. So we know our import was successful. Now I'm going to go ahead and refresh this cube, and there's our data. So all months have been updated for revenue and for COGS. Next item we're going to handle is we're going to create a business rule, or a calculation is another word for a business rule. So we're going to create a calculation within this cube. I just created some more space for my on my workspace so that I can create the rule and edit the rule in the canvas. So I right click on the cube and click edit business rule. So this is free form, you can type here. So there's certain syntax that you have to follow in order to write a business rule, just like any application. What you can also do, there's help here that you can use, hotkeys that you can use to show you functions. So if you click Control space, you get different functions that Planning Analytics anticipates would go in a rule file. So the first one that you need in every rule file is skip check. So you enter that. Control space, feed strings. The purpose of skip check and feed strings. So skip check is to skip zeros when it's compiling, when the algorithm is compiling the data. And feed strings is a function that is used if you have string elements. Feed strings would feed those to different cells within the cube or from cube to cube. So then we'll go ahead and write our script. So what we're going to create here is a calculation for gross profit. So we have revenue and cost of goods sold. We're going to create a calculation for gross profit. So I'm going to go ahead and start typing that in. So gross profit is equal to, now we need a parameter here for either a leaf level calculation or a consolidated calculation or a string calculation. So this is going to be at the leaf level. We're creating gross profit, so that requires an N colon. And then what is the calculation for gross profit? Revenue minus COGS. So revenue minus COGS. If there's any syntax errors here, and you save this rule, you will get an error and it'll tell you, and there's a red notation that comes here that lets you know that your syntax is wrong. Like if I remove the word S, the letter S from feed strings, you get that right here, and then you get a little red identifier here that lets you know that there's something wrong with your line. So that's very helpful when you're writing rules. So we have our first line, so we have gross profit, revenue minus COGS. Next is, I'm going to calculate margin. So that would be margin percent is equal to gross profit divided by. Now you might have noticed that I'm using this slash for the division as opposed to this one, and the reason is this slash handles anything divided by 0, and it gives you a 0 result as opposed to a pound value. So this is just internal workings of planning analytics, and all these parameters and functions are very clearly stated in the help files that come with planning analytics. So there's clear instructions on how to use these parameters so that new users, new developers can pick it up really quick and start creating calculations and such with quite ease. Now, one thing you might have noticed also here is that I didn't use a level parameter like N or C, and the reason is that I want this calculation to work both for the leaf level and the consolidated level. So when you do that, you don't have to put a parameter there, you just leave it without a parameter and it'll work for both. So then we'll continue with this calculation, and it's divided by gross profit divided by revenue. Every statement ends with a semicolon. So we have two lines here now. Now these calculations have been created, but planning analytics has a concept of feeders, and it allows planning analytics and the algorithm within it to work at optimum levels when you specify certain cells that need to be fed correctly. Since, as you know, planning analytics is a memory-centric product, and you have to define a flag, which is a feeder and it's a flag within the application that you have to state where the data is that you need calculated and what's triggering that calculation. So that flag is called a feeder. So I'm going to go ahead and create that feeder. and that's separated by the feeder statement, and every feeder below, every line below that feeder function is considered a feeder, and the algorithm comes in and reads first the calculation and then the feeder that needs to be created for each calculation. So each calculation here is going to require a feeder. So in order for me to have gross profit, I need two things. I need revenue or costs. So in every case there is revenue, give me gross profit. Or in every case there is cost of goods sold, give me gross profit. So what I'm going to do is create that flag by feeding revenue to gross profit. So the way that is going to be written is revenue goes to gross profit. And then I also need a feeder for margin. So since revenue is also part of margin, I can use revenue to feed margin. We can go ahead and save this. And I got an error. And the reason is I forgot to enter the semicolon. So if I hover over this, missing semicolon, you get a message right there that tells you that there's something wrong with the rule, and that's because I'm missing a semicolon. So go ahead and put the semicolon, hit save again, and now that error goes away. So we know all our lines, all our rules that we have put in here have been entered correctly. Now there's a lot of material provided by IBM within the help files or external sources, forums, many other places that describe the inner workings of rules, how what is the correct syntax, and also what is the proper way to feed. Now, this is a very simplistic rule. In the essence of time, in this demonstration, this is a very simple rule. Rules can be hundreds and thousands of lines. But in this particular example, we just want to kind of showcase how easy it is to create dimensions, create cube, load data by drag and drop, and then create a very simple rule on top of that cube to showcase the ease of development and modeling within Planning Analytics Workspace. So since this rule is saved, now I'm going to go ahead and refresh my cube and see what I get. So I get gross profit calculated and I get margin. So I know that this rule is working correctly. And one of the ways to check if a rule is working correctly is you suppress zeros. You can trace a calculation, but one way to do it is to suppress zeros. If I suppress zeros, rows and columns, and if the calculation stays and it doesn't get suppressed, I know that my feeder is working correctly and the calculation is working correctly. Last but not least, we're going to create a chart out of the data that we have. So I'm going to clear out some space. I'm going to remove this rule tile. It's always available here to be edited later on if you need to. You right click, edit business rule, and the tile will show up. You can edit that for future purposes. For any changes you want to do to your business rule, it's always available. I'm going to make some changes to my exploration to support the chart. So I'm going to just keep revenue for a simplistic example here. And then I'm going to use a feature called duplicate. So you can use your explorations that you have worked on, and if you know they're ready to be converted to a chart, you can start from that point and you click duplicate, and it's going to duplicate your tile. Very helpful feature. And then from here, I select change visualization, and then select the kind of chart that I want. So in this particular case, I want a column chart. And now my revenue is represented in a chart by month. So what I also want to do is I want to sync these two up, so whenever I change any of these dimension or element selections from this point of view, these two are synced. So I would select those and click this button right here that allows you to set up properties, synchronize, and synchronize dimensions. And then if I select an org here, my chart will follow the behavior or the selections within my exploration. So these two are in sync. So let's recap what we did. We created 3 dimensions: type, organization, time. Type was created manually, organization was drag and drop, and we mapped fields from a file. Time dimension was created using Planning Analytics internal functionality. We created a cube, and then we loaded data in that cube by dragging a file into the cube, mapped the file, and then loaded data. After that, we created a business rule, and then a simple visualization to represent the data that we have in the cube. So in the end, I would like to point out that you can create a full working model within Planning Analytics Workspace. Granted, this example was very simplistic. More complicated models can be created. Extensive and detailed ETL can be done for the data that is being brought in using turbo integrated processes. And just like Architect, all development can be done within Workspace. And IBM is adding more capabilities and features as time goes on, and already they have brought in quite a bit of features that were specifically in Architect and now can be used in Workspace to do the development. Thank you so much for watching, and please reach out to us at loadstarsolutions.com for any questions, comments, or suggestions. And if you need help with any items, we're more than happy to help you. Thank you, and have a great day.